Have you ever heard of the story of Oedipus the king, the great Greek tragedy? King Oedipus is a great hero who attempts and failed to outrun his destiny. He had always known that he was destined to kill his own father and sleep with his own mother, and so he ran away from his parents, not knowing that they weren't in fact his real biological parents. One day, he got in a fight with an old man and killed him, unaware that this man was in fact his real father. Later, he became the king of a land which had lost its king, and he won the hand of his dowager queen in marriage, who was actually the wife of the man that he had killed, and his own mother. It wasn't until years later when King Oedipus learned that it was his own father that he had killed and his own mother that he had married. In despair, he gouged out his own eyes. But this is marketing theory, not a literature class, so by now I am assuming that you are most probably wondering why I'm talking about this story. Well, today I will be using the Freudian theory, id, ego, and superego, to explain consumer behavior, and I plan to use the Oedipus complex, a theory about how young boys unconsciously rival their father for their mother's affection, as an example. But first, what is the Freudian theory? Well, according to Freud's psychoanalytic theory of personality, the personality is constructed into three parts: the id, the ego, and the superego, that develop at different stages of our lives. An individual's feelings, thoughts, and behaviors are the result of the interaction of these three forces, and they work together to create complex human behaviors. And so first, the id. It contains a primitive drive and operates largely according to the pleasure principle, whereby its two main goals are the seeking of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. It orients towards immediate gratification and is selfishly, illogically ignore consequences. The second, the ego. It develops from the id and ensures that the impulses of the id can be expressed in a manner acceptable in the real world. It operates on the reality principle, which internalizes the society's rules and strives to satisfy its desires in realistic and socially appropriate ways. And the last, the superego. It is the aspect of personality that holds all of our internalized moral standards and ideals that we acquire from both parents and society, our sense of right and wrong. It provides guidelines for making judgments and begins to emerge at the age of 5. But, however, how does the Freudian theory of personality correspond to the Oedipus complex? So, the Oedipus complex, introduced also by Freud, is a child's desire for sexual involvement with the parents of the opposite sex and a concomitant sense of rivalry with the parents of the same sex. It is a crucial stage in the normal developmental process, and this term derives from the Greek hero King Oedipus, the poor guy which I have already introduced to you in the very beginning. And the superego, the moral factor that dominates the conscious adult mind, also plays a crucial part in the process of overcoming the Oedipus complex as the child's moral develops. And the stage usually ends when the child identifies with the parents of the same sex as well and repress its sexual instincts with the other parents because they now know that it is something that is morally wrong. And even though a child may outgrow Oedipus complex, we can actually still get the hint of it in an adult. The desire for the opposite sex parent may still remain in an adult's unconsciousness, and the id, while the superego sees this as an incestuous, morally wrong desire that must be stopped. The ego, in the middle, balances the two by letting the person love and bond with the opposite sex parent maybe a little bit more so than the same-sex one, leading to saying like daddy's little girl or mommy's little boy, and thus gratifying the id's desire and making the behavior acceptable to the superego and its rules as well. And in this case, marketers can market female products at men in special occasions such as maybe Mother's Days, and female products at women in occasions such as Father's Days, as customers are more likely to buy presents for the opposite sex parents. Men are more likely to buy feminine products such as flowers for the mothers, and women are more likely to buy masculine products such as watches for the fathers. But of course, only in special occasions. Usually, that is not the case. So, the id, ego, and superego work together to create human behavior. The id creates demand, the ego creates the need of reality, and the superego adds morality to the action which is taken. We know that the id and superego are in conflict with each other, as the id is about hedonic desire, gratification, and pleasure, while the superego is about conscience, rational, realistic, and task-oriented desires. So, of course, they clash. And in class, Professor Kaniv has already used a lot of daily examples, such as the conflicts between the id, which maybe wants a very long sleep, while the superego knows that it is impossible and allows only a very brief nap, and the ego, as the meditator, concludes that this person can only have a 1-hour nap, balancing between the id and the superego. But how do we relate this to the marketing and consumer behavior? So Freud, he has a nephew, Edward Bernays, who is dubbed the father of public relations, because he took Freud's ideas and applied it to consumers. He too agreed that appealing to emotions is the most powerful way of persuading consumers to buy. Unconscious motives underlying purchases is essential in understanding consumers. The premise was to short-circuit their rational consciousness and target them where they were the most vulnerable, the unconscious. Like, how can you know you're being targeted, and how can you raise your guard if you are unconscious of it? So, Bernays, he was renowned for his successful attempts at encouraging women to smoke. And Bernays, with the help of other psychoanalysts, determined that women saw cigarettes as a symbol of male power. And the desire for female empowerment led to the torches of freedom in the 1920s, wherein women were encouraged to light up a cigarette and march for women's rights. Rates of female smoking skyrocketed. Bernays effectively took a product that gave women no real liberation, but linked it with the feeling of empowerment. And in this example, female empowerment is the id of female consumers, which is something that is still rather unacceptable by the society back in the 1920s. Thus, the superego disapproves female into doing anything against the society rules to attain female empowerment. However, the ego, the medicator, comes along. It convinces the women that smoking can be the compromise between the id's demand for empowerment and the superego's prohibition to it. Using the reality principle, it shows the female consumers that smoking, just like men, is an acceptable way to achieve the first step of female empowerment. And thus, by appealing to the id, but marketing the product according to the ego, the torches of freedom is a total success. So, from this, we can see that appealing to the id is the most effective and efficient way of marketing a particular brand or product. However, as it is not completely realistic, the marketers must offer a means to gratify this id and desire in an acceptable way, and that will be the product or service offered by the marketers. Now let's use a simple real-life example to illustrate this. The phenomenon of staycation during pandemic. How does the id ego and superego explain this rising trend of staycation. And let us start with the id. What drives people into going on staycation in the first place? It operates on the pleasure principle, which means this behavior is guided by the primary desire to maximize pleasure and gratification. And what is the underlying motives behind these people? It's not just to enjoy a relaxing night in the hotel. They want to travel. They wish to go to vacation and travel and gain pleasure from the experience. And that, my friends, is the id. And what does the superego say about this? As the rational and realistic counterweight to it knows it isn't possible. Why? Because it is difficult to go onto vacation in the pandemic. Not only do they have to go through the horrible isolating quarantine experience, but they also need to spend a lot of money to pay for it. Hence, the superego prohibits it. And that is when the ego comes out. To balance between the hedonic desire to travel and the rational realization of the impossibility of it, the ego comes up with a solution. Staycation. In this case, people can taste what it is like to enjoy themselves and relax in the hotel as though they are really on vacation, even though they are not, while not needing to go through quarantine. And how would marketers advertise this staycation advertisement? Now let's look at this ad. What desire do you think it is appealing to? Hedonic or rational? I don't even think I need to say this. Of course it's hedonic. Like, look at the first picture with the amazing sea view. You can almost smell the saltiness in the air and feel the soft texture of the shades against your legs. And the second picture with the warm sunlight on your skin and birds chirping in the trees and the comfortable stretching of your body as you do yoga. The last one, the amazing food on the tip of your tongue. There's no detailed explanation or verbal promotion to convince consumers into purchasing this offer. Just pictures showing how much this offer can create the sense of travel and vacation to the customers. And thus, this is appealing to the id of a person's mind, showing the pleasure that a person can experience in this offer. It does not appeal to the ego by saying, oh, you can't go to vacations, but you can stay in a hotel in Hong Kong. Or appeal to the superego by saying, don't go to vacations because that crap is expensive and quarantine is awful. However, the provided offer is actually fitted to the ego. It is aimed at the people who wish to go to travel but are unable to adhere to the superego's constraints. It is a balance and compromise between the id and the superego. Staycation. Alright, anything else? Alright, so when do we apply this to a marketing situation? Where does this put us in the AIDA model? This is pretty important, as I'd say that it'd be all in vain if all the effort is targeted at the wrong stage. Between awareness, interest, desire, or action, which do you think? I say it is targeted at the interested potential consumers and urging them into the stage of desire. As I have already mentioned, such advertisements appeal to the hedonic desires, fantasy, and emotions. Usually, this is applied in situations such as when the customers already know a lot about the brand or its products, or when there are many competitors and the brand needs to use a hedonic appeal to differentiate itself from other competitors by creating a brand personality, which is a set of traits people attribute to a product as if it were a person. For instance, in the torches of freedom smoking marketing, the brand is personalized into a person who is supportive in female empowerment, and its products are about power and strength and independence. For staycation, the brand hotels, will be perceived as being flexible and adaptable to these new pandemic environments, which change the targeted market from overseas travelers to local consumers. And most importantly, its offer is about enjoyment and joy and relaxation. Just accepting the offer and staying in the hotel can help you take a little break away from life. And anyway, back to the AIDA one. In any case, customers already have a lot of rational and utilitarian information about the products and are already likely interested in the product. And this is where all the id/hedonic appeal comes in. It just poops in, hit the customers in their unconscious id, and arouse their desire for the marketed products. There are many other advertisements which also make use of the appeal to id, but the rational offer suited to ego. Such as this Ralph Lauren perfume advertisement which make use of the sexual pleasure of the id to appeal to customers while making the offer rational by using perfume as a solution instead of like running around having sex like an animal, which is most probably what our id prefer. These two food advertisement hedonic id appeal is also used, with the first one appealing to the id's desire of a beach day in summer. And judging from how it says about a taste of summer, this ad is most probably not published in summer, and it appeals to the consumer's id of wanting to enjoy summer right away by offering another rational solution accepted by the ego: ice cream. The chocolate ad, however, is a little tricky. Can you notice how it is different from all the other examples that I've offered so far? A little hint, it is about the ego. In all my other examples, the id and ego are different. The ego simply finds a different way to please the id. However, here, the ego and the id is the same. The ad appeals to the id's desire for something smooth and creamy, and the ego's solution is something smooth and creamy as well: chocolate. The offered product is not an entirely different thing that only manipulates the feelings of the customers and make them think that the offered product gratifies the id while the product is actually directed at the ego. And what does all of this entails? Well, this entails that there are actually countless ways to market a product. You can appeal to the id, the ego, the superego, and the offered product can be suited to the same desire or an entirely different desire. Nothing is fixed at all. And in a world where there are a vast number of very similar products and all of our base needs are satisfied, creating a personality for a brand that consumers can emotionally connect with is of profound significance today. Successful advertisers are those that are able to manipulate human motivation and develop a need for goods that consumers initially don't desire by appealing to their id and hedonic desires while making their offer good realistic for the ego. Although the Freudian personality theory emerged just way back in the early 20th century, it can still be usefully utilized in modern days if manipulated carefully. So before I wrap up, I'm just gonna end with like one last example. The targeted customer here is a depressed professor who is bored of life and wishes to be on the top of the world, admired and loved and appreciated and respected by everyone. If it is the id of the customer, what offer should we give him? Well, we can offer him the solution to this, which is to give all his students a very good grade. His students will thank him for that, and the word will spread, word of mouth. And other new students will fight to take this professor's class, and in this case, the professor will feel loved by all his students, which may not really be the case, but still, it's it. will be gratified by this solution that is actually fitted for the ego. That's on final notes. Don't kill your father, and don't sleep with your mother.